afternoon, adventurers. Woo! Here we are. It's time for John's Dungeon Corner because it's Friday here at the Collective in Altamont Springs, Florida. Yes, sirree. Now, it's the end of the month. January kind of came and went, right? Here we are. What's today? What, the 27th? Oh my gosh, the whole month is just kind of like just blown by us, no? But anyway, it's been a good month. We've done a lot of D&D, and I think got past the whole Christmas and New Year holiday, right? And now we're back to normal. Well, whatever passes for normal nowadays. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about some of the first. Let's start with some of the cool things that have come in. Not a lot to show you. A lot of stuff has come in, but I wanted to pick out a few things. These are really cool. Now, a lot of miniatures came in, and they came in these war bands, right? Now, two for Dungeon Masters that might want to look at that are kind of specific, especially since all the new Spelljammers products have come out. These are really cool because these are creatures. These are the Githyanki. They're up there in the ethereal astral plane, running around, capturing people, and just doing all kinds of crazy things, And they came out with the Githyanki Warband a little bit ago, but I wanted to show it off because it's so cool looking. I really didn't talk about it back then, but it's really neat. It comes with 7 Githyanki, and wow, So, and then of course, this would be nice for anything that you do out in the Spelljammer Astral area. Now, this is really good. This will come out now. A lot of people have, in fact, and one of the questions that I'm going to answer today has to do with this. There is a Secret of Saltmarsh adventure book that came out a little bit ago, but here are this is a Sahuagin warband. Okay, really neat. It has 6 Sahuagin in it. All right, which is really cool because they were well done. Now, these you could have gotten a couple of these, like not these sculpts, but sculpts like these in some of the previous packs that came out. But these are specifically 6 warband. I think this will be more than enough to get you going and playing in the in that Saltmarsh, the Secret of Saltmarsh, which I have the special edition that came out, the really nice book. You guys know me very well that I love the feel of the new books. So that's what I got. So anyway, this came out. And now I know that there are a lot of 3 Dragon Annie fans out there. Well, this is really cool. This is 3 Dragon Annie, and it's called Giants War. Okay, it's an expansion to the 3 Dragon Annie game. So this has the dragons, and of course now they got the giants. It's an expansion for it, and I'm not going to get into it a lot, other than to say that this is something. It's an expansion to it. It looks really neat. Hey, brother. My brother just came on. He's up in New York watching. That's very cool. That's always fun. Talking about 3 Dragon Annie. I know there's a lot of enthusiasts out there about the game, but here it is. And this is the Giants War. So it's something that you can do to add to your game. And that's something that it's funny because this is kind of like, Jason. All right, get back to work, Jason. Thanks for dropping in, man. I always appreciate it. So, okay, so in the question that I'm going to talk about has to do with specifically Saltmarsh, okay, and sea adventuring. Okay, now it's funny because we went on one. My son Antonio had us run through a campaign, and in his campaign, we went into the murky depths of the ocean. Okay, and I got this from I got a question about Saltmarsh. So yes, Saltmarsh is something that can either be it's set up as a 1 through, I think, 14 or 15 adventure book. And it takes place, of course, in Saltmarsh, and it's really neat. I played it a long time ago, but it's based with Sahugans and a lot of lizard men and that kind of thing. And you don't see a lot of that in campaigns. And so they do have a lot, I'm not going to say a lot, but they have started coming out with miniatures and creatures that have to do with the ocean or lakes or, that whole water-based adventuring. The Secret of Saltmarsh to date, as far as I know, because I haven't seen anything else, is specifically designed as a coastal adventure that takes you underwater. And with that being said, yes, there are a lot of items in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, there are plenty of items that would allow you to go into that kind of an environment. There are spells, of course. There are magical items and other things that can be devised that are already in the campaign, but in the Dungeon Master does have, such as the Cloak of the Manta Ray. There's something that lets you breathe underwater. I don't think there's a ring anymore because I think there were certain items. There's a cap that allows you to breathe underwater. It's a hat or a cap. You can make it into something else, a hat, a helm, a underwater breathing. And here's the thing, talking about that, that was the kind of what I really want to address is the question. You can pretty much turn any item. So the Cloak of the Manta Ray, all right? You could technically turn that into a piece of armor, all right? Because that's what it does. It's a Cloak of the Manta Ray. It lets you swim like a manta ray, and you have no penalties for acting in the. You don't turn it into a manta ray. It makes you act as a manta ray. It gives you the abilities to go through the waters and such. All right, but you can just as easily make that into an armor that's flowy once it gets into water. And you come with any kind of background. It's a set of chainmail armor, and when it's submerged in water for 30 seconds, a minute, it turns into this flowy, kind of almost manta ray-ish looking. Or you can even use a different kind of, you can make it plate armor and say it looks like a sea turtle. It acts like a sea turtle, but lets you move through the water and interact in it. So there's a lot of things that you can do as a game master. Just because, as Gary Gygax said, this is more of guideline. Okay, there's more of a guidelines for you to use. You can go in there and adapt this to your campaign, however way you want. There are magical items that have to do with the sea in here that most people go and go, okay, yeah, a ring of free action, might work. So you can turn things into rings, you can turn things into necklaces, penis, so everybody doesn't have the same thing, all right? And it gives some variety and diversity to your campaign, all right? I hope that helped you out. But I wanted to tell you, the Sahuagin came out, and there are miniatures for it, really, really nice miniatures. Actually, they're well made. I like them. Okay. Now, to kind of wrap up this month of the Dungeon Master, all right, we talked about creating the characters, and I still think that you can have, okay, and this is another question. So when we create our characters, I just created I started a new campaign just this last Wednesday for a group of 6, and we create our characters 46. Highest 3. But what I did was I had a little twist to it. I let them reroll 1s and 2s because, and let me explain this to you, and this is really important. Depending on the level of campaign that you want to run, okay, I like running my campaigns to where I'm free to put in whatever creatures without restriction. I always max out the player's hit points. Okay, will I do the monsters or not? Just depends. But the players always have maximum hit points every level. That's something that I do for my campaign. In the book, it says you can take an average or roll it. That's up to you as a game master. What I did was I gave them maximum hit points at first level, and I'll give them maximum hit points at every level. All right, that ensures their survivability. All right, they're still going to need potions. This is going to need spells. This is going to need scrolls. But it's nice to give them that survivability. They're fragile, and they're crunchy, and they taste good with ketchup. Remember, that's what the dragons say. All right, so with that, I let them roll the 46, kick out the lower 1, reroll 1s and 2s, and came up with some decent scores. Now, here's what I do. Even with the racial adjustments, I don't allow them to go over 18. That's trade-off. Okay, yes, you're going to get the reroll 1s and 2s, but your starting stats, even after racial adjustments, can't go over 18. Now, a couple of characters came with some really good characters. They had a couple of 18s, a couple of 16s in that. But hey, that's okay. All right? You want your characters to survive. You want your characters to be able to interact with their environment and whatever it is you put them into well. You want them to have some good skills. You want them finding traps. I mean, not every trap's going to get found, but you want to give them a decent chance of it. All right? The new players, you have to help out a little bit more. Sometimes you have to kind of guide them in a good direction, even though they want to kind of go that way. You need to kind of keep them on track here, especially when they're new. Okay, take some extra time with them because they don't know what they're doing. They may have an idea up here in their head, but when it comes down to translating it into the character, may or may not work the way they think. So, and that's how you, as a dungeon master, have to kind of curtail that and help them out. So that's important. And then as we go through, I talked about the starter sets and the essentials kit, which is what I'm doing. I'm running the Mines of Phandelver with the essentials kit. It has the map and everything is really nice. They were kind of like, ooh, all about it. So that's kind of cool. Okay. Just some nice visual representations there. Had a map board out, dice. Make sure that they have dice, I made sure that they have their own sets of dice. I mean, I got that, whatever. I made sure that they had them with some extra dice for the rolling. So that makes them feel, what's the word that I'm looking for when they feel into the game. They're a part of the game, invested in the game. There we go. That's what I want to say. They feel more invested in the game, so they're more likely to show up more often. Then, as the venture, now when I'm going to go into the adventure, dice, yes, dice are important, as you can see. Hey, I'm still looking for a dice sponsor. All right. John's Dungeon Corner is still on the hunt for a dice sponsor. Always looking for one. And then you guys will have first dibs on everything. You'll have the showcase spot. And every time something new comes in, there you will be. All right. So the viewers are there. We're going to get there. Help us out. Get more people out here. So anyway, all right. The other thing, so as you go on these adventures, like I said, I suggest using, using the experience. Whereas at the end of each chapter, each adventure, you sit there and bring them up another level. I talked about certain ways of doing it. In here, they already have it set up for you. The quest experience. So at a certain part of each chapter, you just go up. All right. If you're doing it on your own, I suggest it anyway. It's easier than trying to distribute experience out individually. Total it all up. Know that everything at that adventure, when they overcome this adventure, if they're a little short, a little over, you know what? That doesn't matter. That's all built in. There's a percentage over and under, and their second level, their third level. Okay. So there's that. And that's called the milestone experience. That's the actual name, milestone experience method. Okay. Now, we talked about the skills and how they apply. Make sure, and I'm not going to get into everything, but I want to make sure that at the very beginning of the game, you have a session. I call it my session 0. You can call it your pre-session, your session 1, your introductory session, whatever you want to call it is fine. I call it session 0. Get down there, let these players roll the dice. Just let them see and do what it takes. It's time for initiative. Okay, so I rolled. How do I get my initiative total? Where is that from? Where does the initiative come from? It comes from your dexterity. Okay, so my dexterity is this. It's written right there on my character sheet. Okay, so I rolled a 19 plus a 2. Oh, I have a 21 initiative. Hello, love. Oh, there's my wife from Stetson University. All right. Welcome to the show. So make sure that you explain how that initiative is done, okay? And how it comes together. Let them roll for their skills. Let them use their skills. History check. Okay, I need you to make a history check to see if you remember in your training or if in your schooling, someone has mentioned the Citadel to you. So you roll. Oh, I rolled a 13 plus 3. It's a 16. Okay? Let them pass. Give them some information. It's only session 0. There's all kinds of information. They don't know nothing yet. Give them that information. Let them use their skills to a practical end. Let them be successful so that they feel comfortable using their skills. And use more than one. Let them overcome a trap. Okay, here we go. A 19 plus 4, because, hey, that roll better have a 3 or a 4. So 23. Oh, man. You disable the trap and, and describe it to them. Had you sat there and not, if the cleric took it one step further, it would have sprung a dart trap. There you go. Things like that. Explain how the saving throws work. Okay? explain how proficiency works. I'm just kind of going over various points. And that's the most important session, is that very first time you sit down to play. Not so much when you're creating the characters. When you're creating the characters, you got to roll dice. You have to situate the dice in their abilities. You have to work out all their skills, the equipment, their backgrounds. And you have to put together the character. That's the meat and drink of it. Now, that's the meat. Now comes the potatoes. So you've sat down to eat. Now we got to eat. And that's when the adventure begins. And that first adventure, don't make it something huge. Make it something simple. Make it something easy that allows you to incorporate rolling for initiative, rolling in combat, how to do damage. Okay, so 13 plus 4 plus 3, let's say 16 to hit. Okay, with my short sword, 2 plus my damage. And make sure they have it all written out. I roll 1d6 plus 4. Okay, so I did 8 points of damage. Let them experience everything they're going to need to. Let them get familiar with it. It only needs to be like an hour, hour and a half long. But the wonderful part about it is it gets them to use the mechanics needed in the game. The role playing, don't get caught up on that. That will come in time. Some are going to be really comfortable with this. Some may not. That's okay. You can develop it. Okay. You can start with some role playing and then advance it slowly as the characters get more, the players really get more familiar and more comfortable with it. And that's something that you set up, with the innkeeper. And the more they role play, the more information they get. See, it's kind of like the carrot in front of the carrot, dangling the carrot. The more you role play, the more you're going to get. Also, you want to find that +1 magical sword that you've been hearing about. Well, it's not just going to fall out of the sky. Good grief, I hope not. Might skewer somebody. But if you role play with this merchant who might send you to this blacksmith, who might send you to this shady guy down in the alley. Oh, well, now all of a sudden, that role playing, also is like, I can role play my way into things. Now, you might still have to go and find it, and there may be traps and monsters guarding it. But information is just as good as swinging a sword to attack, okay? And here's something you want to put. A lot of DMs get caught up in, and I've seen this a lot circulating through the internet and just out there. Well, my gosh, they have all this going, they got nothing to spend it on. Sure they do. Information shouldn't come for cheap. Even if it's a silver here and a couple coppers there, gold over here. There's always something to learn. If you want to get some of that gold in it, they have to, they're living. They're sharpening their weapons, taking care of their armor. Something breaks, something's lost. Okay? There's nothing wrong with, instead of that monster who hit a crit on a 20, sitting there and doing all this damage to them, what if instead it hit that shield so hard it cracked it? I mean, now don't how do you say? Don't degrade that to where it no longer has value, a +2 armor value, but tell them, oh man, there's a crack on your shield, and that could get worse as you adventure. Now they got to go get that fixed. Okay. Hey, your sword is nicked after fighting, those elemental creatures, those earth elemental creatures. You might want to get it, and there you go. All right. So there's a lot of things that you can do where they're staring at, the food that they eat, the supplies that they need. All right. So there's always a way to get that money back out of the game, and you just have to kind of and develop that. Not all at once, but develop it, because players don't start with much gold anyway, right? They start out with what? I think the most is like 18, 20 gold pieces. If you're lucky, I think that's like the rogue or something, depending on what background they take. Now, yes, let me say, because that was a question. I'm bringing all this up because I wanted to weigh. Crack shield is no bueno. Yeah, no, they're not. It's not. But and remember something. When you're creating these characters, you could give an experienced character the ability to say, okay, well, here, take the gold and buy the equipment that you want. But let me give you a little heads up about that. Okay? By the time they get done buying everything, they'd have been better off just choosing their items like they normally do in character creation. All right? But if that's something they want to role play that, hey, that's cool. That'd be great. I do not recommend that for a beginning character, because, like I said, beginning characters don't know what the heck's going on yet, what they're going to need, what they're not going to need. All right. And later on, they're going to ask you, hey, so what should I go buy? And really, that's a hard question to answer because you don't know what their character is really thinking, and how they want to go about portraying their character. Is it like what I call him, the jack of all trades who's got something of everything? You know, once they get that bag of holding their stuff in there, they got it full because there's everything in there. You can reach down and get a kitchen sink probably. Well, at least I know you can get a hemp rope and an anvil. I mean, I've seen it. I'm not telling you anything I haven't seen. They'll pull an anvil and start working on their armor and fixing their armor. There was an armor. One of the characters was into being an armor weaponsmith, and he carried an anvil in his bag of holding. It fits. He had all his tools down in there. Oh my gosh! The only thing I didn't let him carry around was a forge, because although don't get me wrong, this guy figured out how to make a portable forge. But we're not getting into that. It was kind of crazy. But anyway, he was his evenings were spent banging out chips out of swords and smoothing armor out, or banging dents out of swords, out of armor, and smoothing sword blades out, which is really, it adds for a great role playing moment, and it's good. So don't forget about that. But that's what I want to say about equipment. Now, the last thing I wanted to cover too before I finish out is magical items and treasure. Okay, now in these starter sets, everything has its rewards already built into it. Okay, now there is nothing wrong with changing things in there, and when you create your own, you got to create your own anyway. Okay, keep it fair. The Dungeon Master's Guide will tell you for a first level character how much gold. There's a range that you can work with as a group or as an individual for treasure. You can spread all that in there. But if you want to put in a magical weapon, or you want to put in a magical item that they may need in future reference, listen, potions, there's nothing wrong with them finding 4, 5, 6, a dozen healing potions. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, a lot of my contracts, when they sign a contract with the guild, the Adventurers Guild in my world, almost everyone comes with like one potion of some kind, or two sometimes. Okay, so that way they have it. They haven't found anything yet, but as a starter, they get X amount of the contract up front that go buy any miscellaneous gear that they might need, and a potion or two. Nothing wrong with that. They're consumables. They're one-shot items. You drink that potion, it's gone. That's it. Boom, done. All right. At first level, your characters don't have a lot of spells in that to keep themselves going, which is why I max out. So be generous with magical items. I mean, I'm not telling you to put a vorpal weapon in there at second or third level, but I'm telling you, a magical item to help them hit a little better. Maybe a wand of missiles. Wand of missiles only have 7 charges, and you don't want to use them all. A lot of the wands only carry 7 charges now, so they have to use them sparingly. All right. Remember, some items require you to. Oh my gosh! I was just thinking about it, and it just went right out of my head. Oh my gosh! Attune. You have to become attuned to certain magical items, and you don't have 3 attuned magical items. So remember that. A character can't carry 20 million magical items. Well, they can, but they can't use them all, because if they're attuned, you can only attune 3. But just decide how magical you want your campaign to be at first, and as you go up, and just put items in there accordingly. If you see something in a pre-made module that you think just doesn't fit, yes, be generous to new players. It helps us have the courage to take more risks, which makes the game more fun. That's very true. That's a good point. My wife just came up with. If you make them feel courageous, they're going to sit there and, I don't know if we should go attack that giant lizard. Well, we got a couple of extra potions, and I got a potion of this. All right, let's go do it. And it just makes it's like a real adventure. If I have X amount of potions and I got a healer, I'm thinking I'm invincible. I'm going to go tackle that dragon. No, wait, did I say dragon? I meant that giant overgrown lizard. But that's very true. Be generous to new players. Like I said, when they went out on their first adventure on that contract, I gave them, they got half the money up front. And I had written it out that way. I said, I think they got like 150 gold each and a potion or 2 of healing. just 2d4 plus 4 or plus 2, you know. But you know what? Each of them having that, they helped each other like that sometimes. And some players will never need it because they hang back and they just don't get hit. Okay. But they help the other characters. And one character, I think, drank 4 of the party's potions. But oh well, you know what? He was up there tanking and getting beat up, and they kept him going. And sometimes they were out of spells, and they were just. I mean, there was a point where they had gone through all their potions, all their healing, even a couple scrolls they had found. They were just out of it all. So they had to rest. And because they rested, and this is something I'm going to tell you, remember that the game is set up, if you really, really want to make it realistic in the way of, okay, so these guys are in the dungeon. There's a mastermind over here. He's got all these minions. Well, if they've taken over this part of the dungeon and now they rest, that gives him a chance to just set up some defenses and stuff, right? To get his minions pumped up and ready for, so when they come out, they can attack, right? Okay, there you go. And they did. They came and they fought, and it was a lot of fun. It was frustrating at times for them, but that's okay. He was not the tankiest. Yeah, there's a running joke about the tankiest. No, I mean, hey, you know, when you're first level, you may have a great armor class, but you only got so many hit points. Just remember that. But they did good. They got through it. The guy escaped. The big baddie escaped, but they did pretty good getting through there. They got beat up. You know, they rescued some of the prisoners. They got beat up a little bit. They found some stuff. So as far as items go, you know, there's a lot of programs out there that will help you stock a dungeon. And I love to, like, they were finding the hobgoblins that were in there and acting as guards, as the frontline troop kind of guys for this group of cultists. They each had stuff. They'd have like a candle, burned out candle, and a set of bone dice, or they might have a feather. They might have just odds and odd bits that they may have picked up along the way. And yeah, it seems like, well, why? No one's going to want that. You never know. You never know, because it's a feather, right? But what if you decide that it's a magical feather? Or here we go, that little marble, the marbles, one of them might have been an ion stone, right? So this is what I mean. They check magic, they check everything, they put in files, and they have a good time with it. You know, Antonio wrote down 4 pages of items. That's how much stuff was in there. And no, I think out of all of that, there was like 8 or 9 magical items. Okay. But there was a lot of other stuff. Some of it might be worth something, might a letter. There was a map leading somewhere, you know. So there's stuff that you can put in there for side adventures in that. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the treasure that lead to other things. Or maybe it's an item that belongs to a merchant or to someone, and they come back, and you're like, you know, you go back to town, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, that's my father's pendant. Where did you find it? And then all of a sudden, you know, you find out that her father was trapped down there and killed by these cultists, and you know, and then you can handle it from there. They may offer the pendant back to her she may give them a reward. She may not have any money, but you know what? She may be her mother may be the mayor. Her mother may be a constable. Her mother might be a wizard, a retired wizard, a retired cleric, a retired something. And she comes forth and gives them, you know, these were left over from my adventuring days. You know, thank you for bringing news of my husband. Here you are. I want you to have these. And, you know, there may be a potion of extra healing in there, a superior healing, 46 plus 4 or 48 plus 4, 44 plus 1. Listen to me. Oh, my gosh. I'm making it very superior, aren't I? 44 plus 4. That's nice. That's a second level character to have one like that. And there may be a potion of fire breathing and a couple of three other potions of like, you know, 2d4 plus 2 potions of healing. Hey, that's a nice reward for just volunteering to give her back the pendant that belonged to her dead father. That's a nice reward. Was it part of the adventure? No, but there it is. Because once again, that leads to more role playing. Okay, so that's a lot of what I wanted to cover. We covered a lot. Most of the stuff I covered, while we were talking about the Dungeon Master. And really, this month was about getting from beginning the characters to running the adventure. And today I kind of wrapped it up. Christina goes, my wife goes, her mother may be a beholder whisperer. Yes, that's possible too. Depending on where the campaign's going, maybe. You never know. Oh my gosh. And that's not unheard of. That whole animal whisperer and monster whisperer. What is it? There's a video game. I'm kind of getting off track, but there's a video game that allows you to do that. Wastelands 3. You can have animal whisperer, and you can get creatures to join you. And the higher that ability is, the stronger the creature you can have charmed and working with you. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, so that's just to throw it out there. And in D&D, a monster whisperer would be a very interesting kind of character. You'd have to kind of work that out. I haven't seen anything online about it, but a whisperer, some type of whisperer. I'm not saying it could be a spirit whisperer or an animal whisperer or monster whisperer. And I say animal and monster distinctly different because an animal whisperer would be someone who can speak, who has a rapport with like the birds and the natural deer, cats, dogs, mice. Whereas a monster whisperer would have more of a rapport with like beholders. Could you imagine holding a conversation with Xanathar? That's actually kind of cool if you think about it. I would, as a character, I would love to sit down and talk with Xanathar. It would be awesome, talking to him and making sure none of his eyes blast you at any given moment. Just have a nice conversation with the guy. Although you really can in the world, in Faerun, in Forgotten Realms, because he's on, I think, what is it? He's in Waterdeep or Neverwinter. He's a crime lord, so there you go. You could technically run into him. Hey, there you go. But anyway, a storyline idea, yeah, no, not with Xanathar, no. Maybe, you never know. Well, it wouldn't be Xanathar; it'd be a Xanatharish kind of creature, another type of beholder, because he's part of the Forgotten Realms, and we're in Eldritch Kingdom, so. I always have ideas, but that is a good idea, love. That is a good idea. See, interactive. So listen, tell your friends about this show. Get them to come on. I know it's hard. If nothing else, just have them, not everybody can come out and watch it all the time, so they come and watch it later. Have them come and watch it later. Drop some comments. Email me at johnsdc2021 about something that you might want to talk about. Right now, the next month, okay, so starting February, starting next, thank you, love. It was a fun show. I always have a good time doing the show. Next Friday, we're going to start the month long of the players. Okay, so we're going to do it for the players now. And we're going to talk about creating PCs. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of building a character. I'm going to kind of give you an overall look. I'm going to start with that. Okay. And then equipment and backgrounds and how to write a background. I am going to talk about that because that's important. I know that a lot of DMs would love for a player to have maybe a 1-page or 2-page history of their character. Because, your character, even if he's 16 or 17, there was something before he decided to start adventuring. Something. I'm not just talking about, my parents are dead and somebody killed them and I'm out there for revenge. That's great too. That's cool too. But I'll probably bring in one of my backgrounds and kind of show you where it went, because it went totally different than what you're typical of. It's a 19-page history, but I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to kind of give you like the intro to it, and that's about it. Okay, I'm going to kind of summarize it. But yeah, it was a 19-page history that I came up for before a game even started. I already had 19 pages of my character. So I'm not telling you have to do 19 pages, all right? But it would be nice to give your and only if you ask for it, to have it ready. At some point, your DM, if they're new, yeah, my wife knows about it. That's a good idea to give as an example. It is. It was an amazing history that had nothing to do with my parents being dead or anything like that. But it's a very interesting integrated background that brings in a brother, a half brother actually, parents that are still alive and doing well and still pretty much adventuring, and that kind of thing. So we'll get into that probably next week. We're going to talk about putting the characters together. So probably the second or third week that we talk about creating his backgrounds for our characters that are out. One, creating them using the backgrounds that are in the player's handbook and expanding on those, and B, creating one from scratch. So it's been a wonderful time. DMs, I hope you got even just one thing out of this. Then, hey, I feel good about that. And if you just heard me going on and thought something was funny, that's okay too. So, as always, may the road rise up, meet your feet, and may your adventures always be successful. This is John from John's Dungeon Corner at the Collective in Altamonte Springs, Florida, saying, see you next Friday. Thank you to all of you who spent the afternoon with me. And to those of you who will watch this later on, have a beautiful weekend. I'll see you then.